So good morning and welcome to Apotex. My name is Jordan Berman. I'm the head of Global Corporate Communications here for the company. And I want to first extend a warm welcome to our distinguished guests, MPP Yvonne Baker for Etobicoke Centre and Dr. Shafiq Kadri for Etobicoke North. I also want to welcome Alan Odette, who is from the Ontario Investment Office and Ontario's Chief Investment Officer. This is a great day for the province and for our company as we demonstrate what partnerships can look like to strengthen the provincial life sciences sector. I also would be remiss if I didn't interview some folks from our side. Of course, we have our founder and chairman, Dr. Barry Sherman, here with us, who you will hear from shortly. We have our CEO and president, Dr. Jeremy B. Desai, in the front row here. We also have Steve Liberty, who is our Executive Vice President of Global Supply Operations. And we have our worldwide Chief Human Resources Officer and Senior Vice President of HR, Jean-Luc Giraud. So welcome. And last but not least, we have our local site leadership team for the Etobicoke facility, which we're talking about today. So welcome to all of you. Before I introduce our first speaker, I did want to take a moment and provide a brief snapshot about Apotex, a very unique Canadian success story with deep roots in the province of Ontario. We are a global pharmaceutical company, proudly Canadian, the largest Canadian-owned pharmaceutical company that there is. From a very humble beginning of 2 employees in a 5,000 square foot facility, we have grown to more than 11,000 employees worldwide in research and development, in manufacturing, in distribution, in packaging. We produce 25 billion dosages a year, 9 billion right here in the province of Ontario, and we export it to more than 115 countries. We produce more than 300 medicines in more than 4,000 dosages and formats. I know that's a lot of numbers. But the key takeaway is that we fill close to 90 million prescriptions in Canada alone every year, or 1 in 5 prescriptions, the largest amount of any pharmaceutical company. You can tell we're extremely proud of our Ontario heritage, where we have continued to invest in people and infrastructure for decades. We've created thousands of jobs, highly skilled, knowledge-based jobs, to help strengthen and protect the provincial life sciences sector. We are a research-based company. We've invested more than $1 billion in the past 10 years with a commitment to invest a further $2 billion over the next 10 years, making us one of the top R&D spenders across Canada, across all industries. But beyond the numbers, at the end of the day for us, what's most important is creating value for customers, patients, and payers. And while we are proud to say that we've helped save the Canadian healthcare system close to $19 billion by bringing to market lower cost medicines, we're most proud of being a purpose-driven company by creating value and access for patients to affordable, high quality, and innovative medicines. And to talk about how we're going to continue to do that for the next several decades, it now gives me great pleasure to invite up our founder, our Chief Formulation Officer, and our chairman, Dr. Barry Sherman. Barry?
That was very good. You didn't leave me anything to say. Welcome to the representatives from the province of Ontario, to everyone. This is a proud moment for us. We're here celebrating the commitment of the Ontario government to helping us with our program of innovation, but perhaps more importantly, to explain and to celebrate that commitment that we have to ensure our own future through innovative technologies. The landscape has changed, the manufacturing landscape has changed enormously over the past 30 to 40 years. When I started the company, as Jordan said, it was 1974. We started with 2 employees and 5,000 square feet of rented space. We now have in Canada about 7,000 employees and about 3 million square feet of space, billions of dollars invested in infrastructure in Canada. This site here, which we still call our Etobicoke site, is a major production site for solid oral dosage forms, meaning tablets and capsules. There are over 1,000 employees at this site. We have another similar site of about the same size, about 5 miles east in what was North York on Signet Drive, and there's a whole cluster of plants around there. Another major site on Elgin Mills Road in Richmond Hill, which produces primarily liquid products. In Brantford, Brampton, we have Brantford, yes, we had it right the first time. Brantford, we have a chemical manufacturing complex, and we're the largest producers in Canada of pharmaceutical chemicals. So we're now the largest producer of chemicals, the largest researcher in the pharmaceutical industry, the largest exporter, the largest by every measure, having come from nowhere 40 years ago. And when I drive up to one of these facilities, I myself am amazed. Where did it all come from? Because we all work day by day, and each day it appears that very little has been accomplished, and yet years later you find all of this is here. It's sort of like watching your kids grow, and you don't notice changes from day to day, but all of a sudden you've got a bunch of adults, and you say, how did that happen? But it's a lot of hard work by a lot of people over many, many years. When I started, there were, as there are today, about 100 foreign firms operating in Canada. All the brand name companies are basically foreign controlled, but they all had manufacturing in Canada. There were duties, and I think probably about 30%. They were pretty high duties, so every company had its own manufacturing in Canada. But free trade came along in 1993. And then soon thereafter, we began to lose all of our plants, not just in the pharmaceutical industry, but in all manufacturing industries, for a couple of reasons. One being that the most of industry was foreign-owned, and companies didn't need plants in every country. And if they're going to consolidate, there's a preference to consolidate into their home countries or into their major markets. And Canada was not a home country to many of them, if any of them, and nor a major market. So there was no reason for the plants to be in Canada. And then the other problem was that we have free trade with jurisdictions that have very low labor rates, including Canada, China, Mexico, and India. And the rates there are perhaps 10% or less of Canadian rates. So even if you want to maintain production in Canada, how do you do it when the same product can be produced in one of those countries at a small fraction of cost, and the goods are shipped into Canada? You can't compete. So I guess the big questions that come to mind is, why is Apotex still here, and how is Apotex still here? What are the answers? The why is because we're Canadians. We're loyal Canadians. The Apotex is a privately owned company. There are a number of shareholders. They're all Canadians. And we're all very committed to doing things here because we're here and we're loyal to Canada, and this is a family to us. So we want to do everything we can to continue to grow in Canada. But then how do we do it? It's a real problem that labor rates are very much lower in other countries. And there can only be one answer to continue to grow and to expand manufacturing in Canada, in fact, anywhere in North America, but in Ontario and Canada. One has to develop innovative technologies that allow much more output per employee so that labor costs become a relatively low input, and a greater volume in terms of not only physical quantity, but the dollar value can be produced by one individual employee, making the production competitive. In other words, we have 11,000 people over 1,000 people operating in this plant. We want to maintain those jobs and expand the number of jobs, but to do that, we have to use new technologies that allow those 11,000 people to produce a lot more product with a lot more value, so that we can not reduce the number of employees to produce what we're producing, but increase the output by taking larger market share in the United States and elsewhere, because we can produce better quality products at lower cost because we've got more innovative technologies. So recognizing that necessity to ensure our own survival, we turned our minds some years ago to looking very carefully at all of our manufacturing processes to see what we can do to innovate technologies to bring down costs. And I'll give you an example. I won't give you the details of how it's done, but I'll show you what we're talking about. a large fraction of the products, or solid oral dose products, are capsules, gelatin capsules, which are filled with granules. And this is, for example, a omeprazole capsule, a proton pump inhibitor for ulcers, and it's a hard gelatin capsule, two-piece capsule. And if you open it up, you can see it's completely full of pellets, and those pellets are coated, and the active ingredient in there is only 20 milligrams, but the fill weight is 250 milligrams. So it's only 10% active ingredient. What's the rest of it? Well, in order to, these pellets have to be enteric coated because the drug is susceptible to degradation by gastric acid. So first of all, you got to mix the active ingredient, the omeprazole, with inactive ingredients and go through complex processes to make granules. Then you've got to coat those granules with a polymer that will stand up to gastric acid. It won't degrade, and so that it protects the drug. And then when the pellet gets into the intestine, which is more alkaline, the coating dissolves, releases the drug, and it's absorbed. So that's a very difficult process, and it ends up that you have 250 milligrams of material in a capsule, which is only 10 milligrams of active ingredients. We look at that and we say, let's start from square one. How can we come up with new processes, new technologies that will enable us to do the same thing, but instead of having 250 milligrams in the capsule, have 30 milligrams in the capsule? In other words, how far down can we go in inactive ingredient content to have as little as possible beyond the active ingredient? If we can find ways to do that efficiently, what have we done? Well, we've saved the cost of all those inactive ingredients, which is huge, millions of dollars per year. But on top of that, in a batch of 250 kilos, say, of product, processing a batch of 250 kilos, instead of having 1 million capsules, we get 5 million capsules. And if we can do that, get that much larger number of capsules out with the same total volume and the same labor cost, we have reduced our labor cost by 80% per capsule, and at the same time increased our capacities 5-fold to 10-fold. That reduces labor costs per capsule, not only for manufacturing, for quality control, for handling, reduces our shipping costs, and helps us all the way through the cost of everything that we do. So we have succeeded at doing this, but it's not as simple as one technology that fits all products, because there's so many different characteristics of different products. So we have a suite of technologies that we've developed to enable us to reduce inactive content, to reduce use of solvents, organic solvents, eliminate organic solvents, and to so many areas that we found, one after another. This particular program that the Ontario government is helping fund is directed to reducing the contents of capsules, and they're satisfied, as are we, that it's a workable technology. We're well past the stage of proof of concept. We have several products that are already developed using the technologies. They're waiting for regulatory approval, and they'll be commercially implemented very soon. Each one is a long process, because not only does it take months and months of trials to optimize the process for any particular product, then we've got to prove it through stability studies, new studies in human subjects to prove that it's bioequivalent. Then we've got to wait for regulatory submissions. So each one alone, even after we've developed the concepts, can be several $1 million over several years. And when we're doing this with reformulating 20 or 30 older products, as well as applying the technologies to our newer products, you're talking about a program that's 5 years in length and hundreds of millions of dollars of costs for the development and the implementation. So the expectation is that 3 or 4 years from now, actually increasingly over the next 3 or 4 years, beginning within months, our output levels will go way up with the same number of employees. We'll then be adding more employees to increase output even further. 5 years from now, the dollars value of products shipped from this plant will be up enormously, most of it going to the United States, also to other countries around the world. And that guarantees that this plant will be here long-term for decades to come, and the jobs will be here. And so that's the only answer, and the Ontario government has it right. We're grateful to the government, not only for helping us with our project, but for recognizing the importance to the economy of Ontario and for encouraging the same kind of innovation elsewhere. So thank you to the Government of Ontario. Convey our thanks, please, to the Minister, Dogood, and to the Premier as well. Actually, the Premier was here to see this some months ago. She had heard about it and came in herself to look at it, and I'm sure she passed the word that she was very excited with what she saw. I'm an engineer. My background is engineering, and I enjoy this sort of stuff. So I'm out of day-to-day operations. That's Jeremy's role now, and I really focus myself on these technologies most of my time. So I, for the past few years, have been personally spending most of my time thinking about how we can innovate to bring down costs, improve quality, and luckily we're getting some very good results which are going to ensure the future of this company. So that's it. I don't know if questions and answers. What are we doing?
We're going to wait. We have a few more.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Barry. That certainly helped all of us understand the impact of this new technology. So with that, I'd like to invite MPP Baker up to say a few words. Dr. Kadri first? All right, Dr. Kadri, please.
Merci beaucoup pour cette invitation. Thanks to you, Jordan. Of course, I'd like to acknowledge my colleague, MPP Yvonne Baker from Etobicoke Centre. I want it to be known that any substantial announcement from the Government of Ontario, he has to come north for it to take place. Of course, I'd like to acknowledge our founder and chairman, Dr. Barry Sherman, CEO and president, Dr. Jeremy Desai, and Jordan Berman from Corporate Communications. Of course, I offer you greetings and félicitations aux paroles de le Premier Ministre, the Honourable Premier Kathleen Wynne, as well as Minister Brad Dogood of Economic Development and Growth. I have to say that that was very charming to hear your description, not only as Chief Formulation Officer. I think, Yvonne, you and I need to go back and have a Chief Formulation Officer at the Government of Ontario. But I remember we were, as you quite rightly cited, here not too long ago, perhaps maybe a few months, with the Premier, and inevitably, and that was actually specifically detailing the different formulations. So, of course, we allowed Dr. Sherman to go on at length. What was very cute that day is that one of our senior ministers was present, and as you'll remember, you were talking about tamsulosin, which, by the way, as a physician, I know is a drug for the prostate gland, and our minister was so delighted about the fact that he was talking about tamsulosin, he had to volunteer the fact that he was actually taking that medication himself. But in any case, we can see that it's the love of the subject. And I must say, by the way, I felt like actually taking notes as you started to talk about dissociation rates of omeprazole with the proton pump inhibition and so on. But in any case, I want to salute not only Apotex for the magisterial contribution that you're making, not only to economic development and growth, but also from my perspective, the life and bioscience corridor that is Ontario. We think it sort of ends at University Avenue, or we have to go to Waterloo or somewhere, but it's really right here in Etobicoke North, and of course, as you've quite rightly said, globally. And that's, of course, why we're here, along with my colleague Yvonne Baker, and in the name of Minister Dogood and the Premier, to announce an $8.25 million grant through the Jobs and Prosperity Fund. And as you very rightly cited, Dr. Sherman, this will go to new manufacturing technology and processes, and of course will help to retain amongst the many, many thousands of jobs that you're creating, not only here in Ontario, in Etobicoke, as well as globally. And of course, as you've mentioned, this is, I think, an extraordinary opportunity where government and industry and all the stars align. Because having toured your facility and having stepped out of the way of oncoming robots and seeing the extraordinary volume that you're able to deal with, as you said, 300 different medications, I could probably not even name them all, is really just an extraordinary contribution to the province of Ontario, to medicine, and I would say to global health at large. I have to say as well that I also would like to acknowledge your extraordinary support of diverse communities, because I hear you praised and Apotex praised in absentia in my constituency office, where folks will literally come and tell us that they came out with either skills from another country or maybe basic skill set having graduated, let's say, from college or possibly university degrees elsewhere, but you literally, I think the best word to say is you father them, and you grab hold of them and you offer them the skill sets, and that's why you're able to develop this extraordinary loyalty. And as Jeremy rightly told me, some of your folks here for 20, 25, 35 years. And I would just conclude by saying, if you happen to know the motto of the province of Ontario, and this of course goes back to how come you're still in Canada, so we thank you for that, and be right here in Etobicoke. I won't inflict the Latin upon you, although I could. It's basically, it says, loyal she began and loyal she remains. So I would like to thank you on behalf of the province for that extraordinary loyalty that you demonstrate on a day-to-day basis. Merci beaucoup autrefois pour cette invitation.
You can probably guess who our final speaker is. Now that I have the order right, MPP Baker, please, podium's yours.
Thanks, appreciate it. Well, thank you very much, everybody, and I'm excited to be here. It's exciting to follow in the footsteps of Shafiq Qadri. You know, you must be doing a very good job. He must be doing a very good job representing this community, because there's a number of occasions where I've had to come north for announcements. I continue to do that. It's a sign of the hard work he's doing. But I'd like to start by saying, by acknowledging Mr. Sherman, your presence, your remarks, Mr. Desai, Mr. Berman, and the others from the team here at Apotex. Thank you for being here. Congratulations on this important investment, this important announcement, and all the work that's led to it. You know, just before coming here in to make the announcement, I had the privilege of going on a tour of the facility. And before we headed out, I made a comment that, you know, I hope that as we go around and you know, a lot of information is shared with me, that I won't be tested on it later. I feel the same way about your remarks, Mr. Sherman. I've learned a lot, but I hope I won't be tested, although Shafiq is probably the guy to turn to. He's the physician in the room. It's great to be here, and I have to say that it's great to be here not just because we're making this important announcement, but because we're really celebrating a Canadian success story. A success story that has had impact, as Shafiq alluded to, throughout the province, but also here in Etobicoke. And I know as an Etobicoke representative myself, I'm incredibly proud of the fact that we're here, that you've remained here in this community and employed so many people, contributed so much to the economy here. You know, before I ran for office, I was in management consulting with a company called the Boston Consulting Group. And so I used to work with companies to help them solve some of their biggest challenges. And at one point, a number of colleagues of mine and I came together, and we, on a volunteer basis, and we were looking at, you know, what would it take? What would government, private sector, not-profit sector have to do to help grow our economy? How do we make our economy, you know, more successful in the GTA? And we did a lot of research. We talked to a lot of people, and we learned what some of those components are. And of course, we heard about how important it is that the economy can be competitive in a number of areas, whether that be infrastructure or highly skilled labor or education. We heard about the importance of an active government that's there to support business, as we are here to do today. But we also learned about how important it is to attract and retain in the GTA what we called leaders and innovators. People like yourself, people like your team, companies like Apotex, who make investments here in the GTA and bring with them jobs, but also so many spin-off benefits economically to our community and to our city. And I share that story because to me that's a lot of what we're here to celebrate today, or why this announcement is so important. It's a testament. I think this announcement's a testament. Your investment's a testament, of course, to our province's competitiveness. I think the fact that we're making this commitment of $8.25 million that MPP Qadri referred to is a testament to the province's commitment to this company. But very importantly, I think this is a testament to Apotex, to an incredible company that really could have gone anywhere in the world, right? Or you would have had many options. But we're so pleased that you chose to stay here, and so pleased that this investment will bring an additional 325 skilled jobs here to Ontario, here to Etobicoke, and I'm so proud that the Government of Ontario is contributing $8.25 million to that. All I wanted to say is simply that I know that we're here. Minister Duguid couldn't be here with us today, but he passes on his greetings. I know that one of the things that Minister Duguid focuses on a lot is the strength of our economy, not just in supporting organizations like yours, but also more broadly. And Ontario's economy has been performing quite well. We're leading the G7 in growth. We are, and this is not just a broader economic story, but in the life sciences, it's a success story as well. And Apotex is a critical component of that. So proud to be here. So proud to be partnering with Apotex and to supporting you, and look forward to ensuring that economic performance that we have in Canada, in Etobicoke, in the GTA, that Apotex has had, not only is in place today, but for years and decades to come. So thank you very much, and congratulations.
Thanks very much.
Just one observation that I'd like to add is that what we're doing is not important just to enable us to create the additional 300 jobs. It's crucial to be able to maintain the 1,000 jobs, because as we go forward and employ these new technologies to improve our productivity, all 1,300 people will be involved in producing products using new technologies, and therefore having more efficient production, enabling all of their work to be cost effective and to enable us to take market share, notwithstanding the labor costs are higher. So it's very important not just to create new jobs, but to enable maintenance of existing jobs and not losing those jobs offshore through increased productivity.
Thanks, Barry. So that concludes the formal remarks for today. I want to thank all of our speakers, MPP Baker, Dr. Kadri, and Dr. Sherman. We certainly would welcome people to hang around. We have some refreshments, have some more informal chat, but thank you all for joining. Appreciate it. Thank you.